You know that feeling when you're at a dinner party and there's that one guy who knows absolutely everything. He has an answer for every topic: quantum physics, the history of sourdough bread, the geopolitical climate of the 14th century. He's charming, he's confident, and he never stutters.
Oh, I know that guy. You want to believe him because he sounds so good.
Exactly. But then you go home, you fact check one little thing he said, and you realize he made half of it up.
The confident liar.
That is exactly how I feel about using ChatGPT for research lately, and I think that's why we're seeing this massive shift, this migration really towards Perplexity.
It's the breakup of the year, isn't it? People are dumping the creative genius for the reliable librarian.
That's a perfect way to put it. So today, we are diving deep into why that switch is happening. We're looking at the workflow of the answer engine versus the chatbot and asking the big question: are we finally moving past the era of AI hallucinations, or are we just getting better at hiding them?
It's a huge topic, and honestly, it touches on something fundamental about how we interact with the internet. For the last 20 years, researching meant Googling keywords and clicking blue links. Then ChatGPT came along and said, I'll just write the answer for you. But the problem,
This is the
as you
prediction
hinted
engine,
at,
but remember,
is that
it's not
ChatGPT
fact.
is
It's
a
just a
language
model.
model, not a knowledge model.
Right? It's predicting the next word, not checking the facts.
Precisely. It's designed to sound plausible, not necessarily to be true. And for creative writing, that's a feature. For research, it's a bug, a fatal one.
I remember trying to use ChatGPT to summarize a specific academic paper a few months ago. It gave me this beautiful, structured summary. It had bullet points, it had a conclusion, it looked perfect. Then I tried to find the paper. It didn't exist. It had hallucinated the title and the author based on the vibe of my prompt.
That is the nightmare scenario. And that is exactly where Perplexity enters the chat. Because Perplexity isn't trying to be a creative writing partner, it's trying to be a search interface. It's essentially Google meets GPT, but with a very strict moral code about sources.
So let's break down the workflow, because the title of the topic we're discussing is Stop Using ChatGPT for Research. What does the actual day-to-day difference look like? If I'm sitting down to learn about, say, the economic impact of renewable energy in Southeast Asia, if I type that into ChatGPT, I get a wall of text.
Right? And you have no idea where that text came from. It's a black box.
But with Perplexity,
With Perplexity, the workflow starts with what they call pro search. This is the game changer. You type in that query, and instead of just spitting out an answer, it might actually ask you clarifying questions first. It acts like a reference librarian. It says, are you looking for solar specifically or wind? Are you interested in government policy or private sector investment?
that's interesting. So it creates a dialogue to narrow the scope before it even tries to answer.
Exactly. It creates a better prompt for itself. But the real magic happens in the output. When it gives you that paragraph about renewable energy, every single claim has a little number next to it, a citation.
The footnotes.
The footnotes are everything. It anchors the AI's creativity to reality. If it says Vietnam increased solar capacity by 20%, you can click the little one and it takes you to the Bloomberg article or the government report where it found that data.
It sounds so simple, but psychologically that changes everything. It shifts the user experience from trusting the machine to verifying the machine.
It does, and it changes your workflow speed. With ChatGPT, if you want to be responsible, you have to take every claim it makes, open a new tab, and Google it to see if it's real. That's friction. Perplexity removes the friction because the source is right there. You can hover over it and see the domain. You can see if it's citing a peer-reviewed journal or just some random blog.
So in a way, Perplexity is acting as an aggregator and a synthesizer, whereas ChatGPT is acting as a generator.
That's the distinction. ChatGPT generates text based on training data that might be months old or just buried in its neural weights. Perplexity is browsing the live web in real time, reading the top 20 results and synthesizing them into an answer for you. It's doing the blue link clicking on your behalf.
But let me play devil's advocate here. ChatGPT has web browsing now. You can tell it to search the web. So why do I need a separate tool?
You can, but have you noticed how clunky it is? You ask it to search, it spins for a while. It says browsing. Maybe it fails, maybe it reads one site. It feels like a plugin bolted onto a chatbot. Perplexity was built from the ground up as a search engine. The latency is lower, the UI is designed for reading, not just chatting. It has features like collections, where you can group your research threads. It feels like a workspace, not a chat room.
That workspace feel is crucial. I've noticed that when I use Perplexity, I treat it differently. I'm not trying to trick it or have fun with it. I'm in work mode.
There's another aspect of the workflow that I think is fascinating, the copilot feature. We touched on it, but it's worth digging deeper. When you ask a complex question, Perplexity breaks it down into steps. It shows its work. It says, Step 1, P. Finding data on GDP. Step 2, Tuogo, finding data on energy consumption. Step 3, comparing the two.
Showing the work is something we tell math students to do, right? It builds trust.
It builds trust, but it also helps you spot errors. If step 2 looks wrong, like it's looking at the wrong country or the wrong time period, you can catch it immediately. With a standard LLM, the reasoning is hidden. You just get the final polished essay. You don't know if it took a wrong turn in the logic halfway through.
So let's talk about the output, because one complaint I hear about Perplexity is that the writing can be a bit dry.
Oh, it's incredibly dry. It's robotic. But for research, that is a feature, not a bug.
Explain that.
When I'm doing research, I don't need flowery adjectives. I don't need the AI to say, in the tapestry of global economics, renewable energy is a vibrant thread. I need solar costs dropped 15% in 2023. I want density. I want information density. ChatGPT often fluffs things up to sound human. Perplexity strips it down to the facts.
It's the difference between reading a novel and reading an executive summary.
Exactly. And if you want the novel, take the facts from Perplexity and paste them into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this to sound engaging. That's a valid workflow. Use the researcher for research and the writer for writing. Don't ask the writer to do the fact checking.
That's a powerful distinction. We're starting to see a stack of AI tools emerging. It's not one tool to rule them all anymore.
We are unbundling the AI. For a while, we thought the chatbot was the universal interface. Now we realize, no, we need specific interfaces for specific cognitive tasks. Perplexity is for information retrieval and synthesis. Claude or ChatGPT is for creative generation and reasoning.
I want to pivot slightly to the collections feature you mentioned, because for me, that was the moment I realized I couldn't go back to ChatGPT for deep work.
Yeah. Tell me about how you use that.
Well, usually when I'm researching a topic, it's not just one question, it's 50 questions over 3 days. In ChatGPT, that becomes this endless, scrolling, linear chat history that's impossible to navigate. In Perplexity, I can turn a thread into a page. I can organize sources. It feels like I'm building a personal wiki.
That's the shift from chat to knowledge management. You're curating a library, not just having a conversation. And there's a social aspect to it too, right? You can share those pages.
Right? Instead of sending a colleague a link to a Google search, which is passive, here, you go figure it out. I can send them a Perplexity page where the synthesis is already done, but the sources are still there if they want to dig deeper. It's a much higher value way to share information.
It raises a really interesting philosophical question though.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
If the AI is doing the synthesizing, if it's reading the 20 websites and giving us the summary, are we losing something? Are we losing the nuance that you only get by wading through the muck yourself?
That's the classic calculator argument, isn't it? Did we lose the ability to do long division? Yes. Did it matter? Maybe not. But this feels different.
It is different because when you read a primary source, you pick up on tone, on bias, on context. If Perplexity strips all that away to give you just the facts, you might miss the subtle argument the author was making. You're trusting the AI's interpretation of the web.
That's true. We are effectively outsourcing our critical reading skills to an algorithm. We are becoming editors rather than readers.
Editors of truth. I like that. But it puts a huge responsibility on the user. You have to be smart enough to know when the summary smells fishy. You have to click the citations. If you just passively consume the Perplexity answer, you're just as vulnerable as the person blindly trusting ChatGPT.
So the workflow isn't just ask and receive, it's ask, review, verify, and synthesize.
Exactly. The tool is faster, but the intellectual burden is still on you. Maybe even more so because it's so easy to be lazy.
Let's talk about the focus modes in Perplexity, because I think this is another thing people miss when they stick to ChatGPT. You can restrict the search, right?
Yes, this is huge for academic or technical research. You can tell it to search only academic papers, or only YouTube transcripts, or only Reddit.
Wait, why would you want to search only Reddit?
Are you kidding? If I want to know which vacuum cleaner to buy, or how to fix a bug in my code, I don't want a zero-star article from Content Farm. I want real human opinions. Reddit is the last bastion of human experience on the web. Perplexity lets you tap into that specifically, ignoring the corporate fluff.
That is brilliant. So it filters out the noise. ChatGPT generally just trains on everything, including the noise.
ChatGPT is the average of the internet. Perplexity allows you to slice the internet. If you use the academic focus, it ignores the blogs and looks at semantic scholar. That instantly elevates the quality of the conversation.
It seems like we are moving toward a world where the skill isn't Googling, it's filtering, it's knowing which dataset to ask.
Prompt engineering is dying. Context engineering is taking over. It's about setting the parameters of the search. Look here, not there. Use this level of detail. Cite these types of sources.
I want to touch on one more thing before we wrap up, the discover aspect. Perplexity has this discover feed. It feels a bit like a news feed.
It does. It's interesting because it shows you what other people are researching. It turns curiosity into a social signal. But more importantly, it shows the power of the tool. You see these incredibly complex questions. What are the implications of the new superconductor breakthrough? And you see a perfectly synthesized answer. It makes you realize how shallow our standard news consumption is.
We usually just read headlines. This tool encourages us to read summaries of deep dives.
But again, it all comes back to trust. The reason I switched and the reason you switched is that we got tired of second guessing our tools. When I use a hammer, I need to know it's going to hit the nail, not turn into a screwdriver mid-swing.
Or convince me that the nail doesn't exist.
Exactly. ChatGPT is an incredible tool for brainstorming, for coding, for creative writing. I still use it every day. But I don't ask it what is true cake anymore. I ask it what is possible, or what is a good way to phrase this.
That's the bumper sticker right there. ChatGPT for what is possible, Perplexity for what is true.
And in a world where truth is getting harder and harder to pin down, having a tool that shows its receipts, that actually points to where the information came from, is not just a luxury, it's a necessity.
It's a survival tool for the information age.
It really is.
So as we close out, for the listeners who are still clinging to their ChatGPT Plus subscription for everything, what is your challenge to them?
My challenge is simple. Take the last question you asked ChatGPT, something you actually needed to know the answer to. Put it into Perplexity. Just look at the difference in structure. Look at the citations and ask yourself, do I feel more confident now than I did 5 minutes ago?
Confidence, that's the metric.
It is. We used to optimize for speed. Now we need to optimize for confidence. Because if you can trust the answer, the speed doesn't matter. You're just getting to the wrong place faster.
That is a haunting thought. We are racing toward ignorance at the speed of light if we aren't careful.
But with the right tools, maybe, just maybe, we can race toward understanding instead.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. We're not just swapping apps, we're upgrading our relationship with knowledge.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure digging into this.
Always. And to everyone listening, check the footnotes. Always check the footnotes. See you next time.